Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a really, I would say, a journey for our team. And just wanted to say thank you for my team and everyone that put together their time and for this project and this presentation. So without ado, our presentation is really about streamlining and improving the onboarding onboarding of county employees. I'm sure this is a topic that everyone is dying to listen to in terms of our solution. So with that, our team member is David Cicero from CIO's office, Brandy Clark, she's from DHS USC, Frank from Animals Control, Angela, who was originally from Public Works, I believe, and is now CEO's office, and myself from the Medical Examiner.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And pardon my camera not being on. I am actually at a conference for California hospitals, California Public Hospital. So this is actually pretty timely. So I'm going to get into kind of the crux of what we're going to be talking about. And if you can go to the next slide, Darwin. Yeah, that'd be great. So what's the issue? Like many areas within the county of Los Angeles, LAC USC Medical Center has had much in the way of operational and capacity difficulties due to short staffing, particularly in direct patient care settings. What sets these challenges apart from the other departments within county is the very real potential for negative impacts that can significantly delay patient care. So to give you a little bit of background about the LAC USC Medical Center. With 670 beds, LAC USC is one of the largest public hospitals and medical training centers within the U.S. and the single largest provider of healthcare in LA County. Our ED alone, our emergency department alone, sees almost 500 patients a day. This facility is also designated as a safety net hospital, and we have legal obligations and our mission to actually provide health care for individuals irrespective of status to pay and irrespective of their insurance status. This legal mandate forces safety net hospitals to serve all population. To add to this, LAC USC is also located very close in proximity to one of the largest unhoused communities, which is Skid Row, which is one of our largest customers to the ED. That said, on any given day, that we have between 100 to 80 to 100 patient beds that are closed due to short staffing, particularly in nursing. To provide some statistical kind of data to this, and it's kind of heavy, but I'll try to speed through it. So physicians spend about 15% or so of their day seeing inpatient rooms, as compared to nursing counterparts that spend about 30 to 35% of their day in patient care rooms, meaning that if you are a patient at LAC USC in particular, and other safety net hospitals around the county, you will spend significantly more time with a nurse as what you would do with the actual physician. Can you go to the next slide? So this is a kind of high level DHS Department of Services org chart. So to provide some context. So in attempting to understand the why behind some of this short staffing, our group engaged with several stakeholders at the LAC USC level about recruitment, hiring, facilitating, onboarding nurses. And in speaking with them, we found out that some of these lags and some of these shortages are not necessarily due to low application rates are poorly qualified candidates, but rather the hiring process itself. Most of the delays are within the final onboarding process, which is called pre-employment, which is a central DHS level human resource function. We've learned from a time a nurse accepts their offer to come to LAC USC, it can take between 4 to 6 months to actually onboard them. Next slide, Darwin, please. I'm acknowledging this slide is hard to read, and that's intentional just for confidentiality reasons, and we redacted some of it. But here you're looking at an Excel spreadsheet. This is typically how nursing recruitment tracks where certain hires are in the hiring process. So after learning this, our group chose to focus on the systems, Freudian slip, on the systems rather than the people for the purpose of mitigating blame and finger pointing. Solutions to fixing these problems are obviously interdisciplinary and multifactorial. For this project, we're not aiming to fix the problem, but rather to understand the factors that contribute, and also to suggest alternative ways to broach and encourage the units and departments that are responsible for these tasks. I'll now hand it off to my colleague, Angela.
Thank you, Brandy. So just to give some context, I'm going to talk about the different stages of the hiring process. As you know, the county's hiring process includes several different steps. It includes recruiting of prospective applicants, posting of county jobs on the county jobs or other websites, the application and exam period when candidates submit their applications and go through the test period to assess their qualifications, list promulgation or the production of the list of candidates who have passed the exam, and the review and selection process when hiring managers interview candidates on the list to determine who will be the right candidate for the job, a conditional job offer to the selected candidate, which is contingent on reference or background checks. And as Brandy referenced, the onboarding process, this is the time during which reference checks and screenings are completed. And then finally, the employee will get their start date. Next slide, please. So prospective employees actually have a very different view of the hiring process, and they're not particularly concerned with all the different stages. They're most concerned with the bottom line, which is how long it takes for them to get hired. DHR has found that job candidates view the hiring process as two phases, which collectively represent what is referred to as time to hire. The first phase is the exam time, or the number of days between the date that a candidate submits their application for county employment and the date they're placed on an eligible list. And then the second phase is the post-exam time, and this includes what is referred to as list time, or the number of days between being placed on a list and the date they are given their conditional job offer. And then finally, the onboarding time, or the number of days between the conditional job offer and the applicant's official start date with the county. So what does the time to hire data look like for the county in recent years? According to reports prepared by DHR, who was directed to collect various metrics about the county hiring process by a 2018 motion, the time to hire across the county has steadily increased over the last few years. In 2018, the time to hire across all county departments was just over 241 days. And by the second quarter of 2021, it had risen to 389 days. Similarly, the onboarding period across all county departments increased from 37 and a half days in 2018 to 81.3 days through the second quarter of 2021. And for DHS, we saw similar trends with a time to hire metric of just over 182 days in 2018, rising to 339 days throughout the first half of 2021. And the onboarding time for DHS increased as well from just over 56 days in 2018 to 100 days through the first half of 2021. And the data that DHR collected showed that between 2019 and the first half of 2021, only 3 departments had longer onboarding times than DHS, and that included Department of Mental Health, Fire, and Sheriff. So the impact of significant delays in the hiring process can vary by department, but it's especially impactful for DHS, which, as Brandy referenced, operates the second largest municipal health system in the nation and cares for approximately 750,000 patients every year. The lengthy onboarding periods can translate into insufficient staffing of key positions, such as registered nurses and other positions that provide patient care. And this can impact effective patient service provision by decreasing patients' access to care or increasing patient wait times for emergency or urgent care if sufficient providers are not available. And the long onboarding periods also impact the county as an employer. We often lose candidates to other employers whose hiring processes are timelier and more efficient. And that means that county time and resources that have been invested to recruit, interview, and screen job applicants has been lost. And now I will turn the presentation over to Darwin, who will discuss our recommendation related to business process improvement.
Thank you, Angela. So what is our recommendations? Angela mentioned one of the recommendations that we had is to implement a business process improvement project. So what is a business process improvement project? Business process is really a practice of identifying and reviewing and improving the current workflow to improve the current accuracy and effectiveness and to realize positive business outcome. So there are really 6 steps to a business process improvement. One is to identify what process needs to be changed. This is typically done through a business process mapping or virtualization of the steps and activities within the process. Once you identify what the process needs to be changed the next thing is to analyze the pain points. Steps to identify bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and redundancies within the system to help really improve the process. This is done by really conducting interviews and input from stakeholders who are part of these processes. Third step is to conduct a root cause analysis, really determine what is causing this problem and eliminate these problems. Once you identify these problems, the next thing you need to do is really design and evaluate what things need to be done to streamline these activities. Things like streamline activities, reskilling the workforce, adding new technologies such as robotic process automation, anything to help really improve the process, right? And propose a solution to ensure that it does not have unintended negative consequences. So once we evaluate and design the process, one of the things we obviously have to do is implement the new process. Change management techniques can help ensure successful adoption of the new and revised activity of these technologies. Once you implement the process, the final thing you need to do is really evaluate, determine if it is working or not. Right. And so as Angela mentioned, throughout the years, the hiring process and the onboarding process has increased to 330 days. And so one of the things we need to do is once we develop metrics is to really understand, if we're improving them, right? If these business process that we've implemented is improving the process. So during our interview with DHR staff, some of the main takeaways and their issues and concerns were lack of visibility in the hiring process to identify the root cause of the delays. That's what they needed. They didn't really know what was causing the delays. A lot of times we would hand off to one unit to another and it would just get lost. These are all important to really improve the onboarding process. So what is the BPI and what should be the plan? So the plan should be, and next steps for DHS HR is our recommendation is to initiate a business process improvement project and to hire a consultant with the following SOW, statement of work. All right. The first would be to really establish a governance structure and orient everyone in the team to what the BI approach should be. There are multiple business process improvement approach. There's the Six Sigma. There's all these other various ones. But one of the things to do is they need to identify which ones would best fit their workflow or use case. Another one is really define the scope of what we're trying to improve in identifying a project sponsor and a project team. After you initiate and to define the scope, the next phase would be to develop a high-level, identify the current as-is state business process. We identify and prioritize high-value process, identify non-value-added activities, and really design a blueprint for a future state, what it will look like, and really define that what it should look like and what the impact and recommendation is. Once you get to the business process and understand what needs to be done and what needs to be changed and what should the future be, one of the things that we recommend also is to do an IT fit gap. As Brandy mentioned in the beginning, one of the things they're using is an Excel document to keep track of this entire process. And so obviously that's a really low tech process of keeping track of all of these different processes, and which is causing a delay in the onboarding time because no one's really understanding what the full metrics is of this business process or this process of onboarding a staff. So this is causing, again, lack of ability of visibility, which is hampering management from making suggestions for improvements. So once we determine the IT fit gap, determine if the department, a final step is determine if the department is ready in terms of staffing model. Do they have the right skill sets? Do they have the funding source? And then develop a roadmap and timeline. our Registered Recorder's Office applied a very similar business process improvement called Lean Sigma to improve their vital records process. And as a result, in less than 3 months, LA County Registered Recorder's team was able to really reduce their online processing time from 17 days to 1 day and reduce their offline processing time from 3 weeks to 1 week. After the project, the staffing was able to process birth and death certificate of marriage in record time, only 1 day. Plus, customers received their certificates in a record amount of 4 days. And as in terms of customer impact, obviously you saw the project results, but one of the clients mentioned that she felt like writing a letter to LA County Registered Recorders to thank them of the outstanding job that they did. With that, we'll pass on to David for recommendation 2.
So you guys are going to kind of get the speed run version of this. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but my name is David Cicero. I am the Associate Chief Information Security Officer for the Chief Executive Office. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Darwin. So for LA County, timely onboarding of a job applicant is really an issue that begins with the application process itself. As Angela pointed out earlier in the presentation, the current hiring process from application to start date can take quite a bit of time. In my research, it can sometimes exceed a full year. And the application portion of this takes a considerable bit of that time. As you guys are likely aware, LA County utilizes the government jobs portal to post jobs, take job application, provide status updates, and so on. It's a highly customizable platform used by government entities across the country. And while the platform has a lot of tools to administer these things, LA County is lacking some pretty basic features. You can't upload your stuff from LinkedIn, for example. This alone would save applicants time and ensure their information is consistent by allowing them to maintain a professional presence at a central hub that they're already using to apply for jobs in like the private sector, for instance, or other places. Additionally, if you look over at the right here, those are some of my real job application statuses. And as you can see, they appear to have been manually typed in because you have application review, application under review, application process, and so on. Some of these are 3 years old now or over 3 years, and they still just say received or processed. And given this, it's easy to see that an applicant would have really no idea of what happened to these jobs, and following up on their part requires kind of the task of locating the exam analyst information, reaching out and just waiting, right? Numerous people that I surveyed personally refer to this as feeling like it was a black hole. So I've thought of an alternative just for this portion, which I'll present on the next slide. Go ahead, Darwin. So here you can see I've created a sample drop-down menu of how the process could flow. You can go ahead one more, Darwin. There we go. So this is implementing the use of something like this drop-down box with an approved status, such as application received, application in review, approved, declined, and so on, would provide a clear, cohesive, and easy to understand status for the applicant. Similar menus have been in place in the private sector for a decade, and the county used to have something like this back when it utilized the brass ring employment system. So it's really just a matter of maybe doing some of the work on the back end with what we have at government jobs, and implementing something like this would really just make it easier for the applicant to have an idea of what's going on rather than just kind of drawing a blank. Next slide. Moving from the application and hiring period, we get into the onboarding phase, where a recent study by Gallup found that 88% of employees indicated their companies did not provide a good onboarding program. As far as our research went, we uncovered a few things just indicating that there was a lack of standardization in the processes. A variety of positions require different levels of background checks, which should impact the onboarding time. Other, external delays, like how long the candidate takes to respond, appointment availability for medical or live scan evaluations, and so on, as well as, no metrics, no real reporting, and scarce communication. So we can't control all these factors, right? Like live scan or medical delays, but we can improve some of the processes that LA County itself is responsible for. As Brandy presented earlier, and I'll kind of reiterate here, this is a bit of an Excel spreadsheet, which is currently being used by one area to track the onboarding process. This obviously is inefficient for a number of reasons, right? There's no real reminders here. There's no tracking. There's very little integration with other data sources, no reporting, and it really is, the customization is entirely reliant on the user's Excel capabilities. Next slide. And so the county would really strongly benefit from investing in a modern software solution, such as Bamboo HR, which is displayed here. This would address a majority of the present onboarding needs, as well as providing numerous other HR functions. Enterprise software or for onboarding could speed up and potentially eliminate many of the existing paper-based processes. It would allow us to gather and store electronic signatures in a secure database, create customizable pre-boarding packages, and make it easier to set new hires up in advance with welcome email packages, which would mean that we don't have to hand a new employee 100 pages of paperwork when they get in, as well as creating trackable IT checklists to ensure user accounts are correctly provisioned by the time that the new hires come on site. Reporting in this would be fully customizable. We could track things like the average onboarding time, as well as each specific step of the onboarding process. And that would allow us to locate pain points, whether it's in our internal or external processes. So I've only scratched kind of the surface of what a software solution like this could do. And while I don't have time to go through all the capabilities or walk you guys through an enterprise onboarding solution, I do believe having things like onboarding templates ready to go, utilizing digital signatures and automating stuff like the welcome email packages and whatnot, as well as notifications to help keep the applicant engaged and aware of where they are in the process, would kind of be good steps for the county in the right direction toward employee satisfaction, both on the hiring and hired sides. So now we'll go to Frank, who will wrap this up for you all. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Darwin, if you could just bring us to our recommendations, the first recommendation, that'd be great. So our first recommendation and our conclusion is we feel that the county will really benefit from first taking a holistic examination of the entire hiring process by engaging a formal business process improvement plan. Lean Six Sigma was one method which Darwin identified that was used successfully by the Register of Voters. Next slide. And our recommendation number 2 is that there should be some research into whether there's a technological solution to integrating with government jobs, with the government jobs program. And this will allow tracking of the applicant from the beginning to the end, and will allow the applicant to access information as their application progresses through the system. There also should be research into whether there are currently any human resource specific software or a technological solution which can provide a measurable matrix and triggers, and which can prompt next steps in the onboarding process. And with that, we'll conclude our presentation and take any questions that anyone may have.